Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden here, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Perfume author Jonathan Ward. Good morning, Jonathan. How are
Hello,
you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. Yeah, it's quite a warm day. It's late June here, just outside London. And where are you, Jonathan?
I'm in Glasgow, so I moved to Glasgow last April. So I've been here for, like a year and a few months now.
So, were you based in Hackney before that?
So I was in London for 15
Right,
years, Clapham for 7, Angel for 3, and Hackney for 5. So I
right.
paid my London dues.
And moved up to Scotland, and obviously Glasgow is such a creative and artistic city. How have you found it? Has it embraced you? Do you feel happy there?
Yeah, I do, Hayden. I feel like I got to that point where I didn't use London as a city anymore. I was basically like, as the work and business got like bigger, I could honestly say maybe 2 nights a month I would actually use the London as a city.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I kind of realized, like, before I even sold my first candle in a month, it was £5,000 going out in studio flat, and it's
Yeah.
just wildly different in Glasgow. And I still come to London like a couple of times a month. I was just there last week. So
You must
yeah.
have clients here, right?
Yeah, we've always had, like, throughout all of my chapters, there's this amazing little store called Spoiled Life in St Andrews. So they're here. I've got a number of like personal clients here.
Mm.
And then I'm back and forward from London. So nothing's really changed except for like the outgoings, and
But
that
that's
pressure.
yeah,
Mm.
but it's a massive thing, isn't it? And we spoke briefly before the podcast, and whilst it's easy to talk about the romance and the artistry and all of those things, but there is a practical consideration which you're a kind of sole trader, for want of better words, and there is a there is a pressure, isn't there? If life is costing a lot, and there's a sort of a pressure economically, that probably
Mm.
doesn't make you the best creatively. So presumably, being in a different city and having some of those weights lifted off must be a good thing for you and for mental health and for the brand and all those things. It must feel a bit less pressured.
Yeah, it is. It almost, well, it feels like I'm sort of starting again. It's like a whole new chapter here. I was in New York for 10 years, London for 15, and Australia for 6 months, Seattle for 6 months. I've done big city life,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was just time to start looking after me a little bit more, and that being closer to nature in this, like, in the Scottish, like being very close to the Scottish Highlands. Like, I've been to Orkney, and I've
Mm.
been to like a number of really just immensely beautiful places that are so far from being a city. And that's just really helped creatively. I've probably done more in the last year than I have in for like the longest time.
Right. And for people that aren't familiar with the Jonathan Ward brand, it'd be great if you just give me a little summary. And I've known it for a few years, and you've been kind enough to send. I think I had a Kartushya candle, and it feels like a brand that it's not sort of it's obviously not one of the massive conglomerates that you find necessarily in the huge department stores, but there's a quality and a luxury to what you do. And yeah, so tell me a bit more about the brand for people who don't know Jonathan Ward candles and diffusers and things.
Oh, thanks, Hayden. Yeah, it's so Jude, should I tell you how I started? So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
started as because people always think it was not something I originally, like, I never wanted to be a candle maker when I was growing up. Like, it was never something that I thought this is like a desirable like profession.
Yeah.
I was in New York, and I was in like doing 12-hour days minimum. Like we never
Did
left
you
the
work in
office before.
fashion, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was in fashion, so I was in clothing originally, and I'd leave the office like if I left at 9 p.m. It was like that was a short day. It was in really intense, big city pressure, and I basically had like an early indicator of fast fashion. I
Yeah.
found it really heartbreaking when I would see 80, 90 samples coming in FedEx priority from China that we would use maybe 5% of in the collection. And then the 50 jackets that I'd put my heart and soul into designing in April, in May, my director would be like, "We need more jackets. We need 50 new, fresh jackets." And I'd be like, what about there's some really
But the ones
strong
we did.
design
Yeah.
in the 50 that we're, no, 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 we need to move forward. So I felt like really early on, like before even people used the term, before I even knew the term fast fashion, that was like, I cannot be, this is not me. This is not like in my soul. And I knew that I'd be deeply unhappy if I stayed in that world. So basically, very long-winded way of saying, I tried jewelry, I tried styling, I tried interiors, and I tried making my own fragrances, under guidance,
Yeah.
obviously. Um,
Yeah.
and it was the fragrances out of all the little projects that I did that people said, these are really good. Like, honestly, Jonathan, like you should do something with these. And I so boldly called Barney's when Barney's was still around, bless its
Yeah.
soul.
Yeah.
Um, and called Barney's, and they took it and they did a pop up with it. And then from there,
Oh, just
it
like that.
just honestly, Hayden, it was like that. It was like my life just changed now. Obviously, the transition of going from making like six figures in a city like New York to
Mm.
like selling a few like handmade candles was brutal. So I was like selling the candles and like working in a restaurant in New York. But you can do 2 nights a week in New York, and like because of the way the service works, and
Yeah.
live quite comfortably. So it was a bold change at 28. And I remember my mom saying, why she just couldn't believe I was leaving behind. Like, I was the only one in my family of like 50 other cousins who'd gone to university and done and like achieved something so like quite young in my 20s. And she was just devastated. She was just,
Yeah.
but little did she know that it was going to kind of garner me a lot of like more attention, I think, than I could have ever got if I'd
Yeah.
stayed in the office world, you know?
And probably if you'd have stuck around in fashion in New York, I mean, that could have just spat you out as well. I mean, it sounds a brutal sort of work life, doesn't it? Working so many hours and rather
Yeah.
thankless.
And my best friend Claire, who came over, who was working with me, we worked at the same company. As our lives grew, I left before she did, but she had her first child with her partner, and they basically, like, this is so typical of New York. They don't have the British like the British structure to like protection for workers. So
Mm.
she had her first child, and they basically pushed her out. So
Oh, God.
like it's a tough city. Like you
Yeah.
just, yeah, it was tough, but it was the best. Like when people say like most of my friends have like got a regular income, they've got a regular, they know exactly what they're going to have each month. Like, and for me, it can be so wildly up and down in a year. But I wouldn't change it because it's just allowed me like the freedom to see
Yeah.
parts of the world that I'd never have seen in a million years if I'd stayed in like an office environment.
Yeah. And in your job description there, I suppose you have perfume author, which probably hints to the fact that there's definitely a bit more artistry and creativity to what you have there with Jonathan Ward candle. So what do you think makes them so special and a bit different from from some of the regular luxury brands?
Yeah, so I use I sort of give my job title as perfume auteur because I was torn. I was at a junction when I was sort of 16 between art and literature. And literature's always been like a really significant part of my inspiration. In fact, whenever I start a fragrance, it's always rooted in some kind of like literary narrative or inspiration. And
Yeah.
the main ethos of the brand is products with purpose, so that I design things like you're never going to see five fragrance releases a year from me, and then that continues for 3 years, and one out of that 15 that I've just wastefully kind of put into the world has actually
Mm,
like stayed. I'll spend a year and a half and then do one really significant release that's got a lot of preparation, a lot of care, a lot of time. It's a brand, and you asked me sort of what separates it from the others. If you break it down to its sum
mm,
of parts, my glass for the main lines from Italy, the wax was certified organic. It's no longer certified organic, but it's still organic beeswax with a really clean burning soy and coconut blend. The packaging's done in the
wow.
UK. It's hand poured, and basically each product needs to it goes out of this studio burning all the way to the outside. If it's not filling the room, it doesn't leave. It wouldn't even go out on
Mm,
my website or be part of the portfolio. At the end of the day, what I've learned over the years is even when you throw away that box and you throw away the carton, and even if the sticker's like torn, what people come back for is in a candle or a fragrance is longevity, is something that is delivers. If it doesn't deliver and it doesn't burn right, you're going to get many one-time purchases.
yeah.
Or for the
Yeah.
people that don't, there are people who'll still buy extremely expensive candles that literally never burn to the outside, but because the aesthetics are right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I've kind of like oscillated between those two, like as between the outside and the inside, and getting them to work perfectly in sort of symbiosis.
You're right, though. It's funny you touched on that. There is that really interesting thing, isn't there, with home fragrance and candles in particular, where there is an aesthetic, tangible quality to them, and they can become an item that looks beautiful in a room and becomes part of that interior design piece. But equally, as you say, that means nothing if they don't smell good and they don't bring you joy, and whatever mood, whatever fragrance you're in the mood for. And but
Mm.
there is those two things going on, isn't there? And but I think actually Jonathan Ward, there's a really beautiful sort of art deco, very artistic aesthetic going on as well, isn't there? Quite dark and moody and slightly sort of
Mm.
Eastern European in some of the themes. But as you say, I think principally you're never going to be disappointed with the different fragrances. And this year you introduced Cosimo, didn't you? Which is you say is doing really well. One of your new scents.
Yeah, so Cosimo is funny because each of the fragrances like has its own like its own little history and its own journey.
Mm.
One which I'll tell you another time, which I could write a book on, is that it's done so many different like cycles and like had its own like owners along the way. But the Cosimo we did, I'm gonna say 4 years ago. I got asked to do originally a really commercial project. So because what we do is like obviously quite high end, and I got
Yeah,
and TK Maxx came to me and said like, look, we are working more and more with like with the high end brands, and we're no longer just sort of taking end of lines and things that didn't work. And can
yeah.
you do something at a price point that's going to work for us, but still sort of deliver some of the Jonathan Ward like flair.
Yeah.
And so Cosimo, I kind of created that then, but because it was, and it had such a wide appeal and to customers I would probably have never like tapped into before.
Mhm.
So then and then it sort of fizzled, right? Because that was obviously just like like a one or two time chapter.
Did it
Um,
happen? Did TK Maxx take it?
yeah, yeah, no, they
Oh,
took
they
it
did.
and it
Oh,
was
right.
out there. But then I sort of I loved the story behind it so much, and I loved, and this summer just felt so, being closer to the countryside and being like, so like literally like 15 minutes walk, I can be, or like jumping in the car, I can be in like the rolling hills of Scotland. Like you can literally go from city to country like in
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to bring Cosimo and I want to give it like, instead of doing it like on a sort of budget,
Yeah.
I want to give it all of this sort of, all of the stuff that I originally would have loved to have put in if I was doing it like just for me. So I
Yeah.
kind of I reworked it, and I'll tell you, this is how you know, like, because that obviously is like an instinctual feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I send it as a sample to one of my clients in Cheshire, who has an optician's, and as a candle, and she went, "Oh my!" She went, "Jonathan, she went, I've had 5 customers today saying, 'What is that scent? Like, what is
Really.
it?'" And they're like, she's like, "It's from." So like obviously I knew. Oh God, thank God, I've done something right.
It
And
works.
then I did it as a perfume sample, so it's not even on the website yet. Did it as a perfume. And my friend Anne-Marie was at her private doctor's, and she had sprayed it just before she went into the appointment. And the doctor said exactly the same as my client in Cheshire. What is that scent? So she then took it for her sort of waiting room areas, really fancy,
Right.
like sort of private doctors. And she said, I cannot keep like the requests we've had for it. We've had to put a little note on the desk,
So know what it is.
a little point of sale, like handwritten.
Yeah.
And I just said, I still trust my instincts, Hayden, after all these years. Even though I can be a little bit insecure at times and doubt myself. When I knew that there was that little like gem was just waiting to sort of be re-released and bring some
Yeah.
magic, and it's this just divine, bright, if I describe a fragrance, because it's quite hard to describe as a fragrance, but it's a tomato leaf, so it's got all that luscious vegetal, like deep
Yeah.
sort of sensual vegetal, but then it's got these really bright verbena, spearmint, and
Oh.
basil, and a soft white sort of clary sage note, and
Yeah.
the white peppery just gives it like a little bit of sparkle. But it's really like it's an
Sounds good.
unusual one for my collection because I've never gone so botanical.
Yeah.
My scents have always been quite kind of complex and
Mm.
clandestine and moody, and this is like, ta-da! Like, hello, I'm
Yeah.
Cosimo.
And it's funny, isn't it? You're talking about fragrances and home fragrance that will work well for summer, and there can be this idea of, oh well, I'm not going to light candles in the summertime. But as you describe Cosimo there, it sounds perfect, doesn't it? To bring almost a kind of refreshing, ironically, almost a sort of cooling sense to the air. It sounds absolutely beautiful. And I presume you would be a huge advocate for candles in the summertime. I mean, why wouldn't people? Why do you think people sometimes fight shy of candles in when it's hot?
Obviously for that, I think people like associate like a flame with like extra heat,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
for me, it's more, it's quite ceremonial. Like when I come in and I'm working at my
Totally.
desk, it's as much as a part of my routine as like, where your pen is and how the laptop's, have you wiped the dust from it. I light a
Yeah,
candle as effortlessly as I take a sip of coffee. And I find I don't do like there's actually a meditation which involves candle gazing where people
Oh,
kind
really?
of find relaxation through staring at the flame.
Yeah.
So that's become quite a one of those trend driven there was goat yoga a few years ago where the little, like baby goats were running around. And now I
Yeah.
mean, I was talking about candle gazing 10 years ago, but for me, I don't do it as a sort of like ceremonial thing, like put yoga clothes on and stuff, but I'll just stare at the flames sometimes, and you do feel this like strange sort of spiritual affinity with like it just takes the anxiety out of the way for me, and I don't think you get that from there's just something about the flame and the combustion and the
Yeah.
it's alive, and I feel like diffusers are beautiful and they definitely have their place, but and I just experimented with potpourri this summer, giving it a modern approach because it's got such a bad rap.
Yeah. Yeah.
um Really, honestly, people always think, but there's beautiful ways to do incredibly rich potpourri that's still wet. It almost feels like it's been pulled up from the earth. But yeah, no, a
Right.
candle, nothing will ever beat a candle, Hayden, honestly, I
I
don't
think
think.
so. I think so. And you mentioned Cosimo as a perfume, fine fragrance, and candle. Is that the approach you're going to take sometimes? Because I know you have moved into fine fragrance more recently. So are you going to expand that area of your business?
Yeah, I really want to. I can be quite undisciplined. Like I almost like I've been saying to the universe for like 20 years that I'd love to find a business partner who could kind of like help sort of steer me a little bit because I get very, I don't have ADHD, but you might think I did because I'll be like, no, Cosimo's a candle, no, a perfume, no, a room spray, and I'm all over the place. But I do from the feedback I've got, what I'll do is like people will say, "Oh, you've been like you've been quiet," but actually in the background, I'll be sort of giving some of my samples to clients and friends, and I don't put it all over Instagram or all over my socials, and I'm getting a gauge for what my sort of die-hard like followers like
What
really
people like?
like, and then I'll release something,
Mm,
kind of already knowing that it's like already there's a little bit of hunger there for it. So
yeah.
yeah, but I'm definitely going to
So
take the
yeah.
brand more towards fine fragrance because I feel like there's nothing better than you're basically like a sort of a walking advertisement. I mean, that Cosimo
Yeah.
came alive because of my friend wearing a little sample that she
Yeah.
went into her doctor's office with, and now it's in an optician's without doing any marketing or any effort. It's in 3 locations. It's been it's going to be in a department store. I've done my first department store deal, which I haven't done for years,
Okay.
over in Ireland. Yeah, that's coming up
Great.
in September.
Yeah.
I can't mention the name yet because they're going to do quite a big reveal, and that's
Right.
coming up in
Fantastic.
September. So I'm excited about that. And
Yeah.
Cosimo's part of their selection.
Great. Great. Well, look, we're going to talk a bit more about the brand and about you. But as always on the podcast, I love to find out about the guests and their morning and evening routines and products that might feature within those. So, how about you, Jonathan? What do you have an extensive sort of product routine and getting ready? What kind of things feature?
I have simplified over the so I'm 50 years old, and I have
Yeah,
so
similar vintage to
simplified. I
me, Jonathan.
needed, yeah, honestly, I needed so much when I was in my 30s to 40s because I was, still I've been growing into myself for such a long time. Um, I didn't really get truly comfortable with who I am until a few years ago. It's taken a long time for me to
Right.
not look in the mirror and not feel insecure. I mean, I needed so much in my 30s: Botox, filler, threading,
Did you?
constant.
You
yeah,
went for
for
all of
like
it.
10 years. And I remember going out one day. This is when I kind of I stopped, and I had a Burberry weekend bag. I probably was in a, a fair estimate 10 grand's worth of clobber,
Mm,
and face filled with Botox. And I was sat on the tube, and I was watching these people laugh, and like they're just so casual and laid back. And honestly, I realized I was just like, I was basically reflecting this energy, like, stay away from me. Like, it was like all, it was like a
right,
big
like a
weight to
barrier then.
carry, a barrier.
Yeah.
It wasn't like something that was a natural part of me. So I haven't had
Mm.
Botox for like years. I can't remember the last time I had it. And occasionally I will get the little, ooh, could you just erase that? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Do you want me to tell you what I use on a daily basis?
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Tell me what you use. What have you worked into your
Um,
routine?
it's so basic now. Honestly, it's the Neal's Yard frankincense cleansing melt. So I use that as my moisturizer. I think it's called cleansing melt, and it visibly smooths, softens, and renews. And I think it's like supposed to be like a once a week like mask, but I use it daily, and I just use a little bit,
Right.
and it is so rich. And I just sort of use it as my moisturizer. Then I use a little bit of NARS, the uh, Radiance Primer, and that just gives
Okay.
me like a little shot, like a little sheen.
Hmm.
And then I mix a little bit of the NARS bronzer powder, so just use a little smudge of that, and then end it with argan oil from Morocco. Press a bit into my palms, and then press it
Right.
through my face. So it's like 4 steps, and it's dead. Yeah, quick. Not like it used to be with like 18 products. And
But that's
like,
something you
yeah,
can keep up, isn't it? It feels like a routine that you can take with you and that you've kind of got down, really.
3 minutes, dead
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
Um,
And what about beard care, Jonathan? What do you sort of trim there? How do you keep it?
I, do you know, it's so weird. It's like, it's gone grey here around the mouth. And it's
Yeah,
still pretty,
yeah. Yours
it's
is
still,
quite sort of dark everywhere else, isn't it? Mine's gone
yeah, it's
everywhere.
weird. It's weird, but no, I don't, I probably should go, since COVID, I used to be quite regular at the barbers. I'm gonna say like maybe once a month for the hair and a couple of times for the beard trim.
Yeah,
But since COVID, like when we started doing everything at home, I feel really bad saying this because we should be supporting other people, but I do it all myself.
yeah.
Honestly, I just sort
I
of
think
sit
everyone
like,
got used to it, didn't they?
yeah. So it's like I need to kind of relearn how to go out again and take care of myself at like at like establishments. Yeah.
And what
So that's it.
about
It's dead simple.
what's
Sorry.
I would say what's your relationship with fragrance? Do you have a big collection of fragrances you like, or do you have to kind of stay off fragrance because of the work you do? How does that work?
I use so I don't use other brands. I'm going to be honest. That I
Yeah,
did for a long time use Comme des Garçons original. The
yeah,
original amber
yeah,
one,
yeah, yeah.
the like it's just like a little pebble with their
Really
black
good.
logo on it. And I used that for I don't know 2 decades, and that was my go-to. But when I sort of started developing my own, like I'm wearing Untopia today, which is
So
a
that's
like
one of the new ones. Is that coming later this year?
that's on the
Untopia.
website,
Mm,
and it's a pheromone based fragrance. So it's got single pheromones from each continent in the world. So it's like a kind of a modeling of like of humanity, if that makes sense.
yeah,
But sort of refined to make it a single stream. So it's taken like little bits from all over the world, and then there's like a kind of how can I describe it? I almost want it to like, it's a very futuristic sense. So it's kind of got like this kind of, the original brief that I wrote for myself was Digital Rose, which was meant to be this kind of like strange, like acidy, vibrant, like digital, like almost like oh, I can't. It's an unusual one, like almost like man-made rose that just kind of gives it like, but it's unisex, so it's not like
Right.
sweet. It's quite. It's a small component of it, so it's blended with this like asphalt note, which is like another
Ooh,
modern perfumery
yeah.
ingredient. So it's got this kind of like wet asphalt, the digital rose, and then like this kind of toasted bread, no, which is like warm, gives it the warmth and the heat, and then allows the pheromones to really like come to life. So that's yeah, that's just gone on the website about a month ago. And so I wear that. It's day to night, man to woman. So it's
Yeah.
literally one of those like a sophisticated version of CK1. Sorry, Calvin.
But it sounds like it has that sort of Jonathan Ward DNA, and quite singular approach that you have, and I can't think of any other people in this field that would combine those, bread and digital rose and all these things together. It sounds intriguing. I can't wait to give it a try when it comes.
Yeah, I'd love to. Like, there's some like some of my goals for the future are to really explore some of the perfume narrative in like a visual video like
Mm,
way, like to bring some of the, because my ideas are quite abstract, and I've had a
yeah,
number of clients over the years say it would be amazing to see that story like come to life. Like, how
yeah.
would that
What it
look?
looks like.
Like if you had the budget to do like a perfume like your way, a perfume commercial your way, like it would be so intriguing to see what you come up with.
Yeah,
So if there are any
without all the
investors out
usual
there,
cliches, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah, like a man jumping into lagoon.
With on stallion or whatever.
Exact on stallion. That's exactly what it would be called as well.
On stallion, we've got it. We're sorted.
Do
We're
you
sorted.
have you seen that? Do you remember? Oh, what was that? Oh, the movie, that silly fashion movie.
Oh,
Oh my
Zoolander,
God, yes. But
Zoolander.
have you seen Kirsten Wiig's impression of like when she's doing her beauty impression in
No,
Zoolander? Oh,
no.
you need to watch it.
Oh,
It's like she's doing like a perfume commercial, like
oh, right.
narrative. Yeah, you need to
It's
watch it.
funny.
It's hilarious. Every time I need to perk me up, I'm on YouTube and I watch that.
There's lots in that vein of kind of parody fragrance ads. I mean, they're very easy to parody, aren't they? Because it's
Yeah.
slightly ridiculous. Jonathan, people who follow you on social media, who maybe get any emails from you, I think even from this conversation, will realize that you're someone that wears their heart on their sleeve, and you're quite open about your life and some of the struggles you've had. There's been some issues around substance abuse, and you've had some mental health problems. Do you find that talking about those things does it help you? It's sort of almost letting people know outside of your work. Letting people know how you're feeling. Is that something that you find is helpful?
Yeah, Hayden, look, in this very small perfume world that we exist in, as in whichever way we contribute to it, you want to get ahead of any problems, like, and I feel like we live in a time where it is encouraged to be open, and it's quite cathartic for
Mm,
me to, it's been quite like, I don't want to be that person where where people are talking about you and you're still putting forward a front of like
yeah,
how fabulous everything is, and then for a fact you're going home to you know to leave the narrative open for other people to fill in. So I
yeah.
just wanted to, when I this is yeah, it's my third try at getting sober. And I've been sober for 14 months, and I'm really proud
Which is great.
that I've
Yeah,
achieved that. So
And
basically,
do you go
just to
to
go back,
AA,
like,
Jonathan?
yeah, I do. I have a group that I go to, and I live, a very kind of disciplined and committed to a life of recovery, but also not for that to take over my life, but for it to be a very to be a strong contribution to me having a full life again, because it's taken me a long time to get to this place, and I think if you don't, so the reason I really keenly wanted to talk about this today is because it could be very easy for people to say, oh, well, he just hasn't got the willpower, or he hasn't, he's tried 2 times before, um, why can't he get it like other people do? So I needed to kind of,
Yeah,
what I've learned through therapy, group therapy, individual therapy. So this year, I can, I could always stop drinking and using when I, like the other times that I got sober, but I couldn't stay stopped. And after 7 years, after 8 years, it would come back. So I've had big chunks of time that I've been completely committed to my work and living a sober life. But
yeah,
I never addressed, the drinking and the drugs that was never like the core issue. The core issue was a lot of damage from childhood that I'd never looked at.
right.
I ran away to New York to get as far away from looking at the first decade and a half of my life. And I used work and workaholism
Mm,
first, primarily, as a way to never look at like like what came before. So
yeah,
this year, I've been able to finally sit down and get super raw. I've been a little bit raw online, but I got really to the core of what the problems were and why I kept going back to not being able, because if you never address something, it's gonna come back to haunt you.
yeah.
And
Of course.
it just needed to be addressed. And there was a lot of really severe bullying at school, and then a really kind of that continued at home as well through with my father. And so I ran, and my art and
Mm,
my design and my writing, and was my way of totally blocking out what had happened in my childhood, and that was my way of just kind of like, yeah, just keeping it all stuffed down. And this year
yeah.
was the year that I finally dealt with it. It'll always be
And
part of my
those things,
story, but it's def
yeah, and those things can't stay buried forever, can they? That in the end, there has to be a way to face it. And it sounds like that's what's happened this year. And it sounds, yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that you've found therapy and found a way to address these things. And it sounds like it's giving you a much better chance of staying soberer.
yeah, Hayden, honestly, because like it's never like this nagging. It's never like, oh, I'm not on the. I'm very very clear that my life will be without alcohol,
Mm,
and anything else. It's just now I've got an understanding as to why I reached for it,
yeah,
as a
which is
way
really
to
helpful, isn't
deal.
it? I think to understand
Yeah,
what the root cause is. Yeah.
that's basically it, the root cause. And
Mm,
I kept wondering why I other people could get 20 years, 25 years sober, and I felt like such a failure. But this is my third try. I could get significant chunks of time, but now I've actually dug really deep this year,
mm,
and gotten all of those old wounds out, like, and allowed them to be healed. It's just like covering them up, like before I've just spent a lifetime covering up that damage, and creating sending these products into the world, like, look at me, look at, like, trying to find validation through other people's approval,
yeah.
and never truly dealing with, like, what was actually, like, it should have been dealt with a long time ago. But It is where it
Yeah.
is, and I am where I am.
Well, thank you for being so honest about it, and it leads, I
No,
suppose,
it's
to the question of the podcast, really, of how you're feeling about the man in the mirror and self image now. It feels to me that you're in such a better and more healthy place. I mean, what do you think now when you're doing your morning routine and you look back at Jonathan in the mirror?
so when I look at Jonathan in the mirror now, I smile more than I ever have. It's
Oh, that's
taken
great.
Hayden a long time to grow into myself.
Yeah.
Honestly, you know, I just was never. I was deeply insecure when I was younger, and people would say to me, "Oh, you're so handsome. Oh, but you're so bright. You're so intelligent. You know." And I'd get these compliments, but until you can finally wear life like a loose garment and
Mm,
just accept, it's acceptance, Hayden. When it's such a simple
yeah.
word, but when you just
Yes.
accept yourself for who you are, you can honestly just look and go. It's not like I don't look and put myself down and say, oh, well, you just have to get used to this ugly mug. It's not that. I just kind of, it's a much more simple, harmonious, like genuine belief that I'm okay when I look in the mirror,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it
And it
makes me
sounds like you.
smile now. Whereas,
That's great. And you weren't prepared to hear compliments from other people, but now there's that self love there, I suppose.
yeah, there's definitely just a humble and warm appreciation for
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
somebody appreciates what I do or myself, I'll accept it. And look, the world can be really unkind, and just giving someone a compliment. I've always believed this, even before when I was maybe a lot more insecure. Is tell somebody what you think if you feel like if you
Yes.
appreciate what someone's wearing, or you think they look,
Yeah.
really pretty or really handsome, tell them. You don't know what that person's going through. None of us do.
Mm,
And so you
absolutely.
can just change someone's entire day through a simple compliment.
I I totally agree with that. And just yeah, we all have that magical ability to make other people feel good, and it doesn't have to be doesn't it doesn't it's not an insincere thing. I think if you feel it and that's the impulse, then say it. I suppose sometimes people get a bit nervous about how these things can be received, but if it's said with heart and genuineness, then yeah, you'd hope it would be received well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, finally, Jonathan, I wonder, what are the things that make you happy and bring you joy?
I am 100% an artist through and through to the heart. I find my happiness, and God, I hope there's a next life, because I still have so much more to show. I really, honestly, that's who I am. It's taken a long time to, like I just said, get comfortable with myself,
Yeah.
but there was always a little bit of doubt as to like who I truly was. And I don't, over the years, like you don't need any more evidence than looking at the Jonathan Ward story, like as to who he is, because I've been in every magazine, I've been in the newspapers, and the brand's been big, it's been small,
Yeah.
it's been in between, and it's ready for its next chapter, but it'll be the most authentic yet, because I finally know who I truly am, and it's so annoying to get your confidence at 50. I swear, I wish I was one of those kind of pushy 20 or 22-year-olds who knew exactly what they wanted,
I
but
know.
no, we are where
But
we
you
are.
now, you've got those years of experience and wisdom that have all sort of imbued into who you are now. Oh, Jonathan, it's been such a pleasure to spend some time with you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the next chapter of Jonathan Ward and the products, and it's great to see you looking so well and sounding so positive, and thank you for spending time with me today.
Thanks, Hayden. I really appreciate You could have asked so many people to do this, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, it's been Been great to see you. Thanks for taking part.
Thank you. Bye.